Less than 10 miles away, another ship watched the disaster unfold. While RMS Titanic was sending distress rockets into the freezing Atlantic sky, a nearby vessel saw the flares. They counted them. They discussed them. And then they stayed still. That ship was the SS Californian. For over 2 hours, Titanic was sinking. More than 2,200 people were trapped in darkness, panic, and sub-zero water. And the closest ship that could have reached them did not move. Was it confusion? Was it arrogance? Or was it a fatal decision that cost hundreds of lives? Because if Californian had acted immediately, history might remember that night very differently. Here's what makes this even more disturbing. Earlier that night, the SS Californian had stopped completely. The reason was ice. Captain Stanley Lord believed it was too dangerous to continue through the frozen field in darkness. So he ordered the engines shut down. Then something critical happened. Californian's wireless operator sent an ice warning to RMS Titanic. Titanic's operator, overwhelmed with passenger messages, snapped back and told him to keep quiet. Frustrated, the Californian's wireless operator turned off his set and went to bed. Minutes later, Titanic struck the iceberg. Distress calls began transmitting into the night, but on Californian, no one was listening. And that silence may have sealed hundreds of fates. Around 12:45 a.m., officers aboard the SS Californian noticed something unusual. A large ship to the south was firing rockets, not one, several. Bright white flares rising into the black Atlantic sky. Third Officer Groves reported it immediately. Captain Stanley Lord was informed. He asked a question that would later haunt his reputation. Are they company signals? No order to wake the wireless operator. No command to start engines, just observation. Meanwhile, that distant ship was RMS Titanic, and those rockets were not company signals. They were distress flares. International maritime rules were clear. Rockets at sea meant danger, yet Californian remained frozen in place, and with every passing minute, Titanic's bow sank lower into the ocean. Between 12:45 and 2 a.m., the rockets continued. Crew members aboard the SS Californian watched them burst in silence. Some officers felt uneasy. One even suggested they might be distress signals. But Captain Stanley Lord never gave the order to move. He never restarted the engines. He never woke the wireless operator. At the same time, on RMS Titanic, lifeboats were being lowered into freezing darkness. Women and children first. Music still playing, water rising deck by deck. 8 rockets were fired in total. Each one a desperate cry into the night, and the closest ship that could see them remained still. By 2:20 a.m., Titanic was gone. The ocean fell silent, but the controversy was only beginning. At 5:30 a.m., the wireless operator aboard the SS Californian finally turned his set back on. What he heard froze the crew. RMS Titanic had sunk. Over 1,500 people were dead. Californian immediately started engines and moved toward the last known position. But it was too late. When they arrived, only lifeboats remained. Survivors had already been picked up by the RMS Carpathia. And then the questions began. How far away was Californian really? 10 miles? 5? Or even closer? Some Titanic survivors insisted they could see a ship's lights on the horizon, a ship that never came. And that testimony would ignite one of the most bitter maritime investigations in history. The official investigations began within days. Both the American Inquiry and the British Board of Trade turned their focus toward one man, Captain Stanley Lord. Survivors from RMS Titanic testified they saw a ship nearby, close enough to see its lights, close enough to believe rescue was coming. That ship, they believed, was the SS Californian. The inquiries concluded that Californian was within range, that rockets were visible, and that failure to respond cost lives. Captain Lord was heavily criticized. His career was effectively destroyed, but he never accepted the blame. He insisted his ship was much farther away, and that the rockets did not look like distress signals. So was he negligent, or was he made the scapegoat for a tragedy too big to comprehend? For decades, Captain Stanley Lord fought to clear his name. He argued that the ship seen from RMS Titanic might not have been the SS Californian at all. He claimed another mystery vessel could have been between them. Some historians later pointed to the SS Samson theory, a small sealing ship that may have been illegally hunting in the area. If true, that ship could explain the lights Titanic saw, but there was never solid proof. Navigation charts, ice reports, and survivor timelines still placed Californian dangerously close. Close enough to respond, close enough to matter. And every year that passed made the question heavier. Was this a tragic misunderstanding in the dark, or a failure of leadership when seconds meant lives? In 1992, a major review re-examined the evidence. The British government reopened the case surrounding the SS Californian. Modern navigation analysis was used, reconstructed positions, recalculated distances. The findings suggested something unexpected. Californian may have been farther away than originally believed, possibly beyond immediate rescue range in heavy ice. But here's the problem. Even if the distance was greater, the rockets were still visible. And maritime protocol was clear. Unknown rockets at sea meant potential distress. Engines could have been started. Wireless could have been reactivated. Action could have been taken. Instead, hesitation ruled the night. And in disasters at sea, hesitation is deadly. By the time rescue truly began, it was already over. The RMS Carpathia reached the survivors hours later. She had raced through ice at full speed after receiving Titanic's distress call. Her captain, Arthur Rostron, took immediate action. He pushed his ship beyond normal safety limits. He prepared blankets, soup, medical stations. He did not hesitate. And that contrast is what makes the Californian story so haunting. One captain reacted instantly to incomplete information. Another waited for certainty. History judged them differently. Over 700 survived. More than 1,500 did not. If Californian had moved at the first rocket, would those numbers have changed? Or was the tragedy already inevitable the moment the iceberg tore open RMS Titanic? More than a century later, the debate still refuses to die. Was the SS Californian a silent witness or a missed miracle? Captain Stanley Lord went to his grave insisting he was innocent. No court ever charged him with a crime. But public opinion can be harsher than law. On that freezing April night in 1912, rockets climbed into the sky above the doomed RMS Titanic. They were bright, they were repeated, they were a call for help. And somewhere in the darkness, another crew watched them fade. History remembers the iceberg, but maybe the real tragedy was hesitation. So here's the question that still divides historians today. If you had been in command that night, would you have waited or would you have moved?